Hi, welcome to Monticello High School's Wood Lab. Today I'm kind of going over one of the projects that we're making in the cabinetry class. Notice I have these 4 boards. We're just going to make a couple of picture frames. We're making picture frames, but we're using picture frames to practice doing our lap joint, practice our bridle joint, and practice our miter joint. That way we can really practice and hone in our skills, develop those skills with these picture frames before we move on to the bigger type of projects that are going to be a little bit more costly in terms of materials. So that way we can make sure that we make them correct the first cut, every cut. But we got to measure correctly, and we got to do some layout first. So that's what I'm going to show you on this. And I'm going to start with the bridle joint. So notice I have my 4 boards. They've already been cut to the lengths that I need. And these are going to go together to create my picture frame. So now, as we do this, and you can either go this way or go that way, with this, because it's a bridle joint, this will go through and these will connect so that my actual frame is going to be roughly about that size when I'm done. And I will cut the joints out. Now, in woodworking, anytime we have something like this, we have some terminology. So we have what we call rails and stiles, and it's important to remember this. So my rails are any horizontal piece, so this would be my rail here. These are the vertical pieces, those are my stiles, and we got to take it into account. Now, the bridle joint basically is the starter. It's kind of like a tenon on the one, and then you've got the inside cut out at the other. So I first need to do some layout. So when we're making this type of cut, my board here is 3/4 of an inch, and the general rule to follow is 1/3. So about 1/3 of 3/4 as I make my layout lines will be there. Now, so as I have my layout, so there are my 2 marks that I measured off, so I can just transfer those lines here on both sides as I go. So now I've got this divided up into 3. Now, on the tenon side of the bridle joint, I'm going to remove this material on the outside. The mating part, I'm going to remove the material on the inside, and I have to kind of keep track. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter on our picture frames which goes which. It just depends on what you want your picture frame to look like. So whether I want to have the rail showing on the top or whether I want to have the style showing on the top. So you just have to make that decision as you go. Now, the other thing is to also kind of transfer this measurement. Now, I can do this 2 ways. I'm just lining up on my board here. So making my line, that's 2 inches, so that is where I want to cut. But I have cut these to 2 inches, so you can also measure and mark and lay out at 2 inches and then scribe your line that way as well. So now, there's always the debate in woodworking. Do I start with the tenon or do I start with the other part of the bridle? So one way or the other. I don't necessarily have a preference. Sometimes I prefer to go ahead and cut out the inside because I think it's a little easier for me to then go back and match the outside. The main thing that I want you to remember is take your time. You're trying to perfect your skill, and perfecting my skill, if you take your time and creep up on it, you'll get success. Now, so I've laid that one out. I would do the same thing here on this one. So we'll mark that one as well so that we've got that going both ways. Just kind of scribe it on both sides. So I get my layout line here, and do the same thing here on this so that it mates, comes through. So now as you look, okay, on this one, I'm going to remove the interior and cut that out. On this one, I'm going to remove the exterior and cut that out. And that is going to be our 2 layout that we're going to follow. We're going to do this on both sides of the board as we go. So now when these come together, this tenon will go right inside there, and we'll be able to have that nice joint with everything matching up if we cut it right. So give me a minute. I'm going to go ahead and move on over to the table saw. I've got a special fixture or a special jig that I'm going to use to show you. We'll talk a little bit about doing this safely on the table saw then as well.